Hi, Siamak.
Hello, hello.
Are we the only two for this meeting?
So far it looks like it.
Is there a meeting? It's not been canceled?
Um, I think
You actually sent Muhammad sent a note out, right? Earlier this morning.
I thought.
Right. We may have more people coming in now.
Hello, CMAC. Can you guys hear me?
Hi, Muhammad. Yes, I can hear you.
Hello, Raymond, Brian. Give people a couple more minutes.
Mohammed, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, okay, right.
I think we're already 5 past. The intention of me calling for this meeting again today is to make sure that the action item that I had to revise the outlook in terms of for the cable vendors in terms of volumes was satisfied, and if any changes to that are needed, I needed comments from people who reviewed the spreadsheet. And then I'll open the forum for anybody who has some additional suggestions on the agenda. Any comments from anybody? It was mainly Amphenol who put out that request initially. Can you guys hear me, or am I just offline?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Like I said, the request came in originally from Amphenol, but they haven't joined today. So I'm gonna call it good then, and that at least I provided a baseline for people to add to. My anticipation is that the market is large enough for both connecting storage externally as well as pooled memory. So I think the conclusion there is that we really want to pursue optimization for linear drivers and continue to push that in the PCI OWG, the optical working group, and the PCI SIG. Because latency sensitivity is always going to be there for CXL, and we are not going to be, as good as a memory expansion solution unless we, cut the retimers out of the game. At this point, the PCI SIG optical working group did the solution with the retimers, and I think the decision was to at least facilitate support of the full PCI specification, including sideband, including all that stuff through out of order sets. And, that was contrary to my wishes. And I think both CMAC and myself voiced concerns with that, but Intel insisted that at the time that we at least get the retimer version out, and then we'll start with the linear drivers. So my anticipation is that we'll continue the effort on the linear driver capability actually.
Muhammad, I think your voice is a little bit chippy. I'm not sure if it's just only me.
I was losing. I don't have Muhammad right now either.
Okay, yeah, so we'll probably have to wait until his connection come back normal.
Maybe he's trying
Oh.
to use the redriver. He's not working.
Sorry if I disconnected for a second here. I'm back.
Where are you trying to use a linear redriver? Wasn't working.
I'm sorry, CMAC, it was the linear optical drivers versus the retimer solution. You're familiar with the details on those?
I'm sorry, I was trying to make a joke about your
Yeah.
connection dropping.
I have a doctor's appointment, so I have to kind of drive towards that, but I wanted to do my best to be on the call, so I apologize. I should have mentioned that.
Thank you for doing that.
No problem. So the bottom line is that we all agree. I just want to make sure we all agree that we need to continue that push with the SIG on the optical working group. And I'm happy to carry the banner with, I have multiple vendors of optical linear drivers who are wanting to continue to this path with us. So ultimately, I think it's going to pay off to avoid having, specs for Gen 6 and Gen 7 and so forth that would slow down CXL. So I think that is one item that I care about significantly. Any other suggestions that we should carry forward in the specification? Is there a need to, modify the current spec for Gen 7 and add Gen 7 at this point, guys? Or
should we assume that at least the basis of the sentiment of the requirements was to provide, the DAC, the AEC, and the AOC, and the direct optical were sufficient to carry us forward because we covered NRZ and PAM4.
Muhammad, I think probably missed at the beginning. What is this, the spec that you're talking about?
The OCP extended connectivity, PCIe extended connectivity requirements specification
I
is the
see.
one that we released Rev 1.0 for, and we already covered in it the viability of Gen 5 and Gen 6 for all 4 types of cable, including bifurcation and lots of details. Should we, the question here is, should we revise that to add Gen 7, or continuing to believe that the same is true for Gen 7 and Gen 8 and so forth? The requirements will, or the distances, because we were very modest in terms of our direct attach connectivity with 1 meter, and with AEC active electrical, we gave it up to 3 meters, which is also modest. And then for optical, we set 7 to 10, depending on whether it's CXL or NVMe. As we go to Gen 7, I would just leave it up to the SIG to help us with the refining the details of whether we have to change our requirements or not. But I think it would be good if they meet the same requirements, at least. So do we need to spell it out, or should we keep it the way it is and assume that they're going to carry those requirements forward?
Mohammed, as it seems that at least PCI SIG has the approach PCI SIG has taken is demarcation point between the electrical and optical, and they are just specifying on the electrical side. The question I have, maybe in response to your question, is as we have outlined the requirements for the length of interconnect and how large of the systems we would like to build with this external connectivity, we have stated lengths, and we could say, give us the highest bit rate you can. The electrical side for the PCI SIG people will follow Gen 5 and then PCIe 6.0 and then 7.0 and 8.0. But an optical side is depending on whatever the optical team wants to do. They do gear.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They started this optical working group, right, in the SIG, the OWG, specifically to cover the optical requirements with regards to PCI, like the sideband requirements, etc. So they kind of forced the issue of needing a retimer to interpret the resets, interpret the ping, and convert it to ordered sets, so that the optical side has that capability to translate those PCI specific solutions into optical code messages, right? Like the ordered set messages.
R-
So
r- Right,
yeah, so basically they stated that, you know, having a retimer will ensure the separation of the optical from the copper, and the electrical piece will have its own specification based on the electrical working group, and the optical section will have its requirements on the optical working group, and kind of segregated. But then, you know, then came the ask for linear drivers, which basically cannot be 100% interchangeable. It puts the burden on the board designers to make sure that they meet the linear driver requirements of a specific cable they qualify. Versus if you just did a retimer, it would be spec. If you designed it per spec, it doesn't matter. It should work with any spec cable. But with a linear driver, you kind of have to tune it to make sure that the linear driver has a good enough signal, and you didn't violate their requirements.
right.
So it's kind of like it's an additional complication that could come back and bite us with Gen 7 if Gen 7 turned out to be harder, because right now the ask is to minimize the FEC design, etc.
Okay, I understand. So the linear driver is the one that causes the optical side to need to know what the electrical side bitrate is to compensate for that. Got it.
Yeah, it's just basically a tuning thing that requires, with regards to the gearbox, and at that point with the linear driver, we're going to count on SRAS capabilities and or SRNS, whichever is chosen, and we remove the, as we put in our specification, we have optional sideband, including reset, etc. Now, the gentleman from Light Intelligence, Bobby, could you comment on that? You know, since you're a linear driver capable vendor.
Yeah, I think we're also study these things inside, and I work with Eric Wehey about this spec issues. We're kind of thinking about, you know, I'm not sure if he already proposed in the PCIe OWG is can, you know, can PCIe OWG define something very clearly on the overall loss budget for each sections, right? And then some of this interchangeable problem could be resolved. You know, assuming that optical cable, just like a 0 dB loss of ideal wire. So it's a 0 dB loss ideal things, and then
Right.
and then you would naturally thinking that, oh, the board, you know, because the total budget is let's say is 36 dB, then the board can be all the way from 0 dB to 36 dB. Then on one side, you know, one side it could be 0 to all the way 36. Then that could be a potential problem. But let's say if you define something that your one side of the board budget the board loss all the way to the connector cannot no more than half of the loss. So let's say it's 18, right? Then because either side is 18, no more than 18. So if you have a 0 dB in between, the link would work at all. If you have something, one side is 5 dB, the other side is 18 dB, then it would still work. So so that's what we think to the way to provide the interchangeability for linear drive. But I'm not sure if that's already been raised up in the OWG.
No, it's not. In fact, we had various people raise the concern that it's not only the loss budget, but also the jitter spec. And since you don't have a retimer, the jitter spec is the one that's going to bite us the most. Even if we were able to agree on 2/3 with 1/3, because like root ports are always going to be more loss, etc. So I think there were a lot of those discussions. Intel insisted that we defer it until later, and they're still working the retimer issues. But I think the bottom line is the biggest concern is jitter, and we need a vendor who is capable of pointing out that the linear drivers can absorb the jitter and not augment it, right? It not increase the amount of jitter in the solution through the cable, right? So that's basically where I'm at. Is we need a strong proponent of this linear driver solution in the OWG who wants this to take place. And right now we have Chris Cole from not Amphenol. It's we have Chris Cole from I'm spacing out the name right now, and then we have Sam Coxis from Amphenol. They're both working out the issues of the retimer base. Coherent. Okay, Chris Cole from Coherent. And so basically, I would love to have you guys add on to that and drive the linear driver, because you have, a very good linear driver solution. So, whenever we're ready, I'm there to back you up as a person who's helping with, the OCP requirements and understands them very well. So I'll back you up on this if you're willing to go in and start the discussions.
Sure, I'll talk to Eric Weihate, because he's more active in the OWG over there. And I think based on our study, we found that jitter it does add a little bit of jitter, but it's not like significant. It's only several femtoseconds of the jitter. So
that's what I think we need to prove, and we need to show probably, I have a system. We have potentially requested cables from you guys, and, we're working closely so we can provide diagrams and results and scientific data that could back up our claims.
That would be great. That would be great.
I haven't followed the conversations at the PCIe SIG on optical working group. Last time that I engaged that team, the main point about linear drivers was defining a compliance point. And then to do that, I understood a lot of simulation, a lot of models needed to be created on both sides of that point. And I'm not sure how far people have taken that. Without defining a compliance point, people on the left side and right side of that point don't know how to behave.
Yeah, I personally suggested that we leave it up to the system solution provider, because defining a compliance point without knowing the other end is very difficult unless we set a specific division of budget, like what's suggested by Bobby, is like, half. I'm suggesting maybe 2/3. I think it becomes doable if we set that level of isolation and specific budget partitioning. If without that, it's going to be hard. The compliance point has to be based on a specific number of percentage across both sides, and requesting that the cable vendor, the optical side, will be 0 on budget and budget utilization, or close to 0, and same thing on jitter being very low. I think it's a significant step, though, but we're going to need to put effort around it to have those discussions and hear them out in order for us to come up with a solution. Sounds good? Anything else
Yep.
that we want to cover with regards to this working group or work stream?
Maybe something high level or organizational, cross organizational point. On Thursdays, there is a short reach optical working group within OCP that meets and have some similar conversation once in a while. If we move
Focused
up,
or
I'm sorry. I didn't hear what you said, Mohammed.
Do they cover PCI in the short reach or only Ethernet?
Well, the team mostly attending are optical suppliers or interested in that, but they would like to know to what should they interface their optical solution. And topics like this come up that, okay, what should they design to? All in all, what I'm saying is, it seems that some of these topics deserve to be discussed in both places, or maybe if this team is moving towards optical solutions, maybe we should combine the two conversations.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think what I'll do is I'll attend the next one then. You said it's on Thursday. As the chair for this one, I will just make the comments over there on the existence of this other group, and if they want us to merge, we'll merge, whatever it takes. But I want to understand their charter a little better, so I'll look it up and read their scope and work on attending the first meeting.
Yeah, I think they meet every other week. I don't remember exactly, and I don't know if this is the Thursday, because last Thursday we didn't meet.
Okay.
Yeah, but all in all, short reach optical team needs to know to what system level requirements are they designing. And this team is talking about system level requirements. So there is a very good maybe ping-ponging and passing the baton thing going on.
Yeah, I think we already have put a lot of time and effort on system requirements. So we can actually talk about it and expand a little more on what short reach means. Is it shorter than what we defined it to be, or, I think we need to have those conversations. You're right. I'll take that extra
Mohammed,
mile.
I'm leading the short reach discussion, so I'll forward you the calendar, which is next Thursday, and I think we can discuss more offline. I can show you the charters and other things.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. So
So Bobby, did you also share the kind of point that I made? Did it make sense to you?
Yeah, it does make sense. And I think this is a lot of requirement could come out from here. We're sort of this we kind of decided that we should focusing on something like a scale up network last week, because we need to define one problems and then working on that. So I think scale up so far the UCI UA link and UA link has two two spec for now. It used to be just a PCIe, and now it is also wanted to expand into Ethernet level, but the fundamental is still the same. You want to have a huge bandwidth for something around like a 10-meter range, and so it shares a lot of things with this group.
well, that's great. So I'll if you don't mind sending me information, I'll join and attend, and we'll bring up the rest of the conversation there.
Sure, wonderful.
One last thing on agenda. At some point when we started this working group, we had the intent to work with SNIA on potentially finalizing the form factor for the cabling solution. Some people wanted to carry forward with CDFP. Some people wanted the QSFP-DD and OSFP-XD. So what we need to do is, carry the banner forward. So at the last SNIA meeting, I spoke, at SDC about starting an SFF work group for us to carry this forward for PCI. So I was wondering, if this team wants to join in those discussions as well, because that means, I'm going to invite, people like Amphenol and yourself and Coherent and others, and GE and Molex, to make sure that we have coverage from everybody and start this SFF group for the connector and socket pinout and connector type that would meet all three of those requirements that we had.
Hi, this is Ryan from InnoLight. We actually work with PCIe OSG there, and we are part of that group proposed to add the QSFP-DD and OSFP. So those are already, I guess, in the work within the PCIe OSG on form factor, and also define, the pad out and all that. So is this this group of work stream going to be tap into that OSG work?
Well, the idea is that the PCI had done all that work, but it would be good to take it and make it an SFF spec. If everybody agrees on that, that seems to be the way I understood it, is a necessity in order for system designers to start to have kind of commonality with an SFF specification.
Okay, no, I would support that if that's helpful with the SFF to define that as part of the, I guess, scope.
Yeah, it's kind of taken. It's just like every other connector that was specified by the SIG initially, and then carried forward to become an SFF specification. It just makes sense to me that we carry it forward, and a lot of people from SNIA just ask that we do this so that we help close any gaps that exist.
Of course, detailed specification should be done at technology suppliers and spec writers such as PCI, SIG, and SNIA. But the result of that good work needs to be integrated in systems, and that's where OCP is active. So,
of course,
I think the closed loop that we're creating, it makes sense. In other words, we discuss how systems are put together. We realize certain requirements. We take it to PCI SIG or SNIA for detailed specification, but with the hope of the resultant come back again to OCP to be integrated. And this discussion that you just mentioned about CDFP or QSFP or such, it needs to be eventually adopted by system designers and suppliers which build OCP gear, right?
Yep. I fully agree. I think it's, at the end of the day, it will merge back into, the system integrators at OCP as part of the solution specification that's using those SFF compliant connectors and
Right.
living up to the guidance of the OWG, et cetera.
Right. So as you guys are talking with other organizations, maybe we could in every one of the meetings say, hey, remember this is system requirement coming to you. Once you're done, we want to take it back and integrate it into other systems. And therefore it needs to kind of eventually make sense to people like DCMHS and Edge and other things within OCP groups.
Right. Yeah, I was thinking exactly the same. That's the goal. Ultimate goal is to bring it back and close the loop.
Yeah, and
into the
right. Maybe I'm foreshadowing the integration of these things into the soon to form, hopefully, a composable memory system infrastructure.
right.
For all of that. And we will borrow from DCMHS, we borrow from Extended Connectivity and SFF and others to eventually integrate all of those into a nice system.
Absolutely. Yep. So I think we're in agreement on the end goal. The reason you and I championed a lot of this stuff is to make sure that we end up with a solution at the end that's cohesive and standardized and compliant. So yeah, well, we'll take that AI, but I think the first step is to let the OWG and the PCI SIG, finish the work and then take it to SFF, finalize it, standardize it, and then finally take it to the the CMS and the multi-headed or the switched solutions, and make sure that they're both utilizing what's out there. All right. Well, this was a good meeting. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt. I have a quick request. My name is Raymond Love, working for Lowe's. For
Yeah.
any future SFF related discussion, would you please include me?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, it will have to get championed by, you know, the cable vendors and the connector vendors, etc. And we'll be there to ensure that the requirements are met. Any other subject today? Sounds good. All right, we'll adjourn then. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.